So if there is anyone in the chat room who wants to join us live, if you just raise your hand, you can put it. It's a no, okay, so it's a request, and so if you like request, or it looks like a little finger like this. I think that's what it looks like. Maybe it looks like that. Anyway, it's a little hand that says, "Hey, I got a question." If you click that, I'll be able to see that you want to be pulled in live to the conversation. Um, all right, so let's get started. I am really excited to be here. I'm Reverend Sherri. I am the creator of the Metaphysical Bible Hangout. I'm also the senior minister of Understanding Principles for Better Living Church, which is the church that was founded by the Reverend Dr. Delarice Lett in 1987. She recently appointed me as her the successor to this ministry, along with my assistant minister, Reverend Sherri Thompson. This broadcast is a part of my personal online ministry called RevSherri.com, and I come to you every Thursday night. Right now we're in the middle of an incredible series called Working with the Law to Grow Your Business, and we're working with this incredible text here called Working with the Law by Raymond Hollowell. And I am really excited. Tonight we're going to be talking about the law of increase. And the law of increase is probably one of my favorite subjects to talk about. And so our outline starts with, I got a couple of announcements and our opening prayer, and then we're just going to look at what is the law and look at some real world examples of applying the law. And then we're going to look at what is the law of increase, and specifically the key to the law of increase, and then using the law thoughtfully. And then we'll close out with how to work the law of increase. And I'm going to share with you 5 steps from my experience. Now, I am using this in my business, but the example that I'm going to share with you is actually something that I used in my personal life when I went through a really tough time financially. I talk about it in today's blog post. How praise turned a minimum wage job into more than $55,000 annually. If you want to follow along on the blog, you can check that out at RevSherri.com. And it's the companion piece, so always whatever I'm talking about on the blog is generally it keys off of what we're studying here this evening on Thursday nights. Also, I have a new teleseminar coming September 1st, and it's called Prosper. And it is a 7-week course to claim your inheritance. And I think we all know, or at least we have an inkling, like anybody you talk to will be able to tell you that there's something that is in them that they want to let out, and something good that's in them, not just something in them, but something good that's in them that they want to let out. And prosperity is so much more than money. Prosperity is health and joy and peace and good relationships and satisfying work and fulfillment and meaningful contribution to the world. And so we're going to talk about that in this course, and I've got so many different goodies. I've got experts that are going to come in to talk about the money piece of it in terms of like how to hold your money and how to invest it and how to prepare for retirement, and look at your specific situation. If you are, started late, putting money away for retirement, or if your investments are not growing and you want to increase them. So that's not my area of expertise. So I'm bringing in people who this is their area of expertise to talk to us about that. And then what I'm going to address is really the spiritual aspect, because that's what I do as a spiritual teacher, that, when you are doing something in the physical world, you always want to marry it with the spiritual practice, because it is the spiritual practice that anoints and enables anything that you're doing in the outer world to actually bear fruit. So you don't want to miss this course. It's going to be awesome, and it's looking like September 1st is when we're going to start. We're on a new platform, and I think it's working out. It's called Webinar Jam. It looks like we've had 4 weeks of broadcast with no issues. So the main thing is that because we're on Webinar Jam now, what you want to do is make sure you subscribe to RevSherri.com. The reason being is that I used to set this up so that it was what do I want to say? I used to do this where it was set up through Google Hangout. And when it's set up through Google Hangout, I'm able to just kind of send the invitations out and you get it in your email inbox. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now you've got to be on my newsletter to get the invitation for it. And so you want to make sure you are in the loop so that you can get that live link every week to join join us for the live session. The scripture for this 11-part series, we're right in smack in the middle of it, is Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And Romans 13:10, love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. Love is, so everything that we're doing, because we're talking about spiritual law, this is how it looks when you show up in love. So, we talked about the law of attraction, and love shows up this way to work the law of attraction. Tonight we're going to talk about the law of increase, and love shows up as praise when you're talking about the law of increase. We're going to get into that. But love is the fulfilling of the law. And so a lot of times people will say, well, I love, but they're not necessarily loving in a way that fulfills the law. And you want to fulfill the law. You want to, part of why you tithe is because you touch the law in a definite, continuous way, right? We talked about that last week with the law of receiving, that the tithing is not magical. What happens with tithing, when you tithe, it means that 10% of all the monies that come in, gross, that you tithe that to where you receive your spiritual food. And what happens when you do that is that you touch the law in a definite and specific way and in a continual basis. So, for example, you are paid monthly, or you're paid bi-monthly, or sometimes you're paid weekly. And what happens is that as you receive that income and you send it out, it's that you're basically starting this giving cycle. So the way that you work the law of increase, the way that you fulfill the law of increase and love is in that consistent giving. So that's what it means when it says to touch the law, or love fulfills the law, that love shows up in these different ways. Okay, opening prayer. Let's just take a moment to relax and allow the power and the presence of God to fill your attention. There is only one power, there is only one presence, and that power and presence is God, the good, omnipotent, the everywhere evenly present Spirit of absolute good. Father, Mother God, we open our hearts and our minds to tonight's lesson. We ask for the wisdom to hear and the patience and the humility to hear this lesson fresh. I thank you so much, Father, for helping me to teach this in a way that your people can hear it. And I trust you to be my words, my eyes, my ears, my guide through this process. Let us each leave here more alive, more alert, more in tune to the power and presence that indwells us all. Thank you, Father, for making this a platform that all people can feel welcome. However someone comes expressing, that they feel like this place where they can get spiritual food that will prepare them to do life better. Thank you, God. I release this prayer knowing that it is already answered. In the name and nature of Jesus the Christ, it is so, and so it is. Okay, I do this every week, but I want it to really, 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 really sink in, and repetition is how you get something to sink in. Law is a term. We use the term in New Thought to be synonymous with God, and usually you'll see it spelled with a capital L, or sometimes what are called small caps, where all of the letters are capitalized, but the first letter is like a capitalized, but it's a little bit smaller. And the law is a term that we use to describe the way we experience God in our everyday lives. So the law is God working in our lives. It is synonymous with the word Christ in the New Testament, and not necessarily Jesus Christ, because Jesus became the Christ. And it is synonymous with the word Jehovah in our Old Testament, or in the Hebrew Scriptures. So the law is how God shows up in our experience. So one of the ways that we experience God in our lives is as the law of gravity. And with the law of gravity, all of us are essentially tethered to this earth. But we can participate in another law, the law of aerodynamics, which enables us to essentially fly or transport ourselves through the air. So The law of aerodynamics is the way that we experience God that allows us to fly through the air. The law of gravity is the way that we experience God that keeps us anchored to the planet. So these laws they have been there. The law of electricity that allows the law of magnetism. That all of these laws that scientists have discovered and named, and they are principles that essentially govern how this universe works. They've always been. The possibility of flight existed in biblical times. There was not a consciousness to bring it about, but the possibility was always there. There are things that we have yet to discover. There are things that we have yet to experience. You know, we have never experienced life on another planet, but someone has conceived it, and if someone has conceived it, it's possible for it to be so. And there will come a time when there will be people living on other planets, and they'll talk about the time when the same way we talk about back in the day with Leonardo da Vinci. I've forgotten is it the Vitruvian Man, where he draws and it's the man and he's got that big circle? I think it's the Vitruvian Man, right? And he's trying to work out this idea of how is it that man could fly. And he's got the conception that it could be so. And I think he even creates a flying machine or something where he's trying to like conceptualize like I know this is possible, but there's not yet the consciousness that enables it to be so. And so we know that it's possible to live on other planets, but the consciousness is not there for it to be so. And so man is ever expanding outward, ever learning and growing. And so the law is how we experience God that enables us to do the things, whatever it is that we want to do. So these laws that we're talking about in this book are ways that we negotiate this universe. The law of increase, the law of receiving. We talked about that last week. The law of receiving, that it turns on giving, and it turns on your touching the law in a definite way so that you continually set in motion a pattern where good comes into your experience because you have disciplined yourself first through tithing, but it shouldn't stop with tithing, to give continuously. So again, the law is how we experience God in our lives. And it's simply a term to be synonymous with God. The way that you see it in the Bible, anywhere you see the word Jehovah or Lord in the Old Testament, you can substitute the word law, and anywhere you see the word Christ, even when it's used in connection with Jesus, that it is Jesus operating as the law, or Jesus personifying the law in action. And let me know if you have any questions on that. Okay, so a couple of real-world examples. So the law of increase turns on praise, and this is from Parenting Science magazine. And we all know that babies and toddlers benefit from praise. And what they found was that in a study of 24-month-old children, the researchers watched how the mothers responded to their children. And then they made note of it, and then they invited the children back, and they watched the mothers who, as their children explored, who gave positive praise, and they watched the mothers who were either, say, cautious or gave no response at all. They invited the mothers back when the children were 36 months old with the kids, and the kids who were most likely to tackle challenges and to persist at a task were the ones whose mothers had praised and encouraged their independence. So they're looking at basically 2-year-olds and how the mothers are interacting with them, and what does the mother say to them? Does when the child is exploring, does the mother give them praise, or does the mother try to hold them back and give them, say, a negative response or no response at all? They brought these same children back when they were 3 years old. And the kids most likely to tackle challenges and to persist at a task were the ones whose mothers had praised and encouraged their independence. I think that is phenomenal. I think that is absolutely powerful, because when you think about what you say to yourself when you run into a challenge, you know, when you run into something that's a hard thing for you to do, for you to figure out, what do you say to yourself? You know, do you get frustrated? Do you throw up your hands? Do you start to feel tired and drained? Or do you lean in and talk yourself through the process? Because, you know, what our parents give us is that they give us how to talk to ourselves through life. And so usually it's our mothers or our fathers that are in our heads as we're going through, or it could be another authority figure in our heads when we're going through whatever we're going through. And the path of a mystic is for you to become the own voice in your head that encourages you along the way. That tells you when you run up against that thing that you don't know how to do. So, for example, one of the things that I'm working to do with RevSherri.com is to create a funnel so that when people come to my site, that there's a clear way that they navigate through. The experience of RevSherri.com is just part of developing the business of RevSherri.com. And if I tell you I've been working on this process for 2 months, now does it take 2 months? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's my first time doing it, and so it is this process that is like pulling teeth, and I'll start working on a piece of the funnel, and all of a sudden I'll find myself feeling sleepy, and it's like, but I'm talking myself through this process, right? I'm being my mother in this process, or the mother that I need in this process to say, you know what, you can do this. You're good at this. Keep going. So this is how praise, or how the law of increase happens. That these mothers praising their children increased their likelihood to tackle something that was challenging and to persist at it. That's the main thing, because I know we've all seen that 2-year-old that, you know, gets frustrated and throws up their hand. I've faced that with Jordan, where he'll get to something and it won't quite work out, and he needs that praise to say, you know what, honey, keep going, you did a good job, keep trying, do it again, to go back and try it one more time, because as he grows, that encouragingness to try things that he is uncomfortable with or that aren't necessarily good for him. That's not true. That aren't necessarily easy for him to do. That's the word I'm looking for. That aren't easy for him to do. And it's the same thing with you. That you run up against things that are not easy for you to do, and it is what you say to yourself, it is how you praise yourself or condemn yourself that determines whether or not you lean in or fall back. Another example, this is probably one of my favorite examples. This is my spiritual teacher, mentor, spiritual mother, the Reverend Della Reese-Lett. She is the actress, singer. She is the founder of Up Church. When we first moved into First Lutheran in 2008, Reverend Della fell when she was stepping off the platform at our new church, breaking her leg and her shoulder in several places, and she was 78 at the time. I personally witnessed the way that she praised her body back to health. And I would see her at church, and I'd see her, because there was a point, like the doctor said, when you're 78, essentially like, you ain't gonna never walk again. And I saw her talk her body back to walking. And so what she would do is that if she took a step and then all she could do was take one step, she would praise that one step. And when she sat in seats, because it created a situation where it was difficult for her to get in and out of seats because the strength of her legs was not where it was, because the bone had been broken. And I would see she wouldn't let anybody help her get out of the seat at all. She flat out would not let anybody help her get out of the seat. And Ray, I know that you can attest to this. And she would basically talk herself out of the seat, and she'd say, "Come on, Dell, you got in the seat, you can get out of the seat." So I watched her praise her body. I watched her talk to herself and talk herself through a very challenging. You think about people who fall at 78 and then die, like meaning they start falling and then it just kind of dwindles on out. And she's like, I got more life to live, and she just turned 84 this year and moving fast. I remember one day I was in her house, because now she uses a cane, and I was walking behind her, and this is when she was still in the house in Bel Air, and I was like, I gotta run after her, because she was just moving, just going, but she proves that you can talk yourself, you can praise yourself back to health, and I watched her do that. So what is the law of increase? So first of all, the law of increase is that let everything that hath breath, this is from 150th Psalm, let everything that has breath praise the law, or the Lord, praise ye the Lord. Let everything that has breath praise ye the Lord. So this is that law. Praise is an avenue of prayer. So praise is a type of prayer through which the law of increase, expresses. Praise is an avenue of prayer through which the law expresses. Praise is the shortest route to complete any demonstration and the quickest way to enjoy effectual prayer. I'll read that again. Praise is the shortest route to complete any demonstration and the quickest way to enjoy effectual prayer. Now, here's the thing. Your praise, and he's very quick to say this in the book, and this is on page 97. Your praise does not influence God, right? Because the least that God can be to you is good. In fact, the least that God can be to you is absolute good. I'm sorry, I got to read this comment. Ray says, Reverend Della would politely tell you she appreciated the offer of assistance, and she would tell you, I have to do this myself. And she would. She would, and this would be because we would study at her house on Wednesday nights, and she would say, thank you, but no thank you, I have to do this for myself. And we have so many chivalrous men, they would immediately rush to her side, and she'd say, no thank you, I have to do this for myself. And then she would talk herself out of that seat, and she got up every time. And I watched her do this. So I know that your words, I mean, I've had my own experiences with praising myself into a situation or out of a situation I didn't want to be in. But I've watched her do that. She was who taught me how to do it. But your praise does not influence God. The least that God can ever be to you is absolute good. That's the least that God can ever be to you. So your praise does not influence God. Your praise influences you. Your praise gets you into alignment with that absolute good. You don't lack blessings because God is holding back a blessing. You lack blessings because you're out of alignment. You're thinking that you live in a universe of lack. And so that becomes your experience. You're thinking that your life is in danger. And so all of a sudden you're afraid to go places because they're killing folk randomly. No, they're not. If you allow that in your mind, you open the space for that to happen in your life. If you allow it in your mind, you open the space for it to happen in your experience. Doesn't mean that it will happen. It opens the space for it to happen. And you're responsible 100% for your life. You're responsible for what you allow into your consciousness. And so you want to, especially right now, because if you read the stuff that's on, I think it's so interesting, this cycle of news that's happening right now. And I'm not saying ignore what's happening or throw your head in the sand. There absolutely needs to be justice in our world. But if you look at the cycle of information, you got, on the one hand, people posting all kinds of positive stuff. This is on Facebook because this is kind of like everybody's news source now is Facebook. You've got people posting all kind of positive stuff on Facebook, and then you've got this running commentary of negativity. And it's catching your attention and scaring the mess out of some people. And I would tell you the same way that that Jesus spoke to the people, his followers who came to him. They came to him, I think this is in Matthew, but it might be Luke. But he tells the parable of the barren fig tree. And they come to him and they bring up two incidents. The first incident is that they were building a tower in Jerusalem, and the tower falls, freak accident, and crushes, I don't know how many people, but like, let's say hundreds of people. And then the second incident that they bring to him is there was a rebellion in I want to say Gaza, but I don't have the Bible verse in front of me, so I'm talking off of memory with this verse. And they want to say, and what Pilate does to put down the rebellion is that he slaughters the rebels, and he takes their blood and he mixes it in with the sacrifices of the Jews. Now, if you know anything about Jews today, but certainly Hebrews at that time, or Israelites at that time, that the sacrifices was one of the ways that you showed yourself worthy of God. And so that was a sacred thing. So for him to take the blood of these rebels and basically mix it in with the sacrifices was I mean, the slaughter itself was heinous, but then taking it was kind of like a kick in the face. It was like an extra, jab in the throat with a knife. And Jesus tells this parable about watch what you are thinking. And he tells a story about the tree that you allow in your own garden that essentially is error thinking. And that if it's not bearing fruit, and this conversation about this negativity, you've got to, there's a way that you approach this, and this is what some of what was talked about, I'm sure, on Monday night with Universal Truth Center. There is a way that you approach your world that gets things done versus keeping you in the story of all the negativity that is happening. And that's so off topic for me tonight, so I got to keep going with the law of increase. But your thinking makes it so in your world. Always keep that in mind. Your thinking makes it so. Life is not random. And it is not random whether or not you get stopped by a cop and end up dead. It is not random. And I will leave it at that. I know that I can just see the comments on YouTube about that. I'm just going to go right away from that right now. What is the law of increase? Praise what you want to raise. Praise is faith in action. Praise is faith in action. He writes on page 98 that praise is complementary to faith. So whereas faith, I'm reading on page 98, whereas faith is wisdom and understanding, praise is the application of that understanding. So faith, Constance says, no thing is off topic as spirit moves through you via the energy given out. Okay, I'll let it go. If it comes back up, I'll go with it. But praise is complementary to faith. So they go hand in hand. So when you say I have faith, the next thing that needs to be happening is your praise. And praise is not necessarily what comes out of your mouth, meaning praise is verbal. There is a verbal component to praise. But praise is also what's in your spirit. And so you can praise God and never necessarily open your mouth. It does not mean that you are loud and, oh, Lord, because some of that stuff ain't praise. Some of that stuff is show, right? Praise is an inner disposition. Praise is how you are positioned towards your universe. Are you in a state of gratitude? Are you in a state of thanking God and praising God, whether you ever open your mouth and say it out loud? Yes, it absolutely compels you at some point to open your mouth, but I don't want you to think of praise as you being that person where every time you talk about, someone talks to you, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an inner disposition. No matter a way that you are poised. And so your praise is your faith in action. Praise is how you demonstrate your faith. And then I put this back again because it just bears repeating. Praise is the shortest route to complete any demonstration and the quickest way to enjoy effectual prayer. If you want to begin to see increase in any area of your life, you want better relationships with your family, you want greater performance out of your children, you want better performance on the job or greater cooperation on the job, begin with praise. Praise the people that you are working with and watch how it changes. Watch how it changes the energy and the atmosphere. And that's what praise does. Praise literally breaks up the atmosphere around you. Marvin says, what men mean for evil, God can use for good. Ferguson has a black police chief. Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, this thing is absolutely gonna work itself out. It absolutely is gonna work itself out. But we cannot marry concern with fear. And you can't think that being concerned about the pattern of brutality that's happening means necessarily that you've got to be fearful, right? Those two things are not synchronous, right? They don't just go hand in hand together. There is an approach to this where you can stay in your spiritual poise, where you can remember that you are created in the image likeness of God, and you can be concerned and effective. I'm interested in being effective. And being a change agent. And if I'm wrapped up in fear, I can't change anything. If I'm wrapped up in fear, I can't change anything. And if I'm wrapped up in fear, then I limit what change is possible. So this idea that somehow that life is just random and that these things, that life does not happen just, and again, this is not blaming anyone for what has happened to them. That's not it at all. But it is recognizing that we live in a universe that is governed by spiritual law. And, because someone posted an article, I think it was Galen that posted an article that says, about the law of attraction, and saying that, the people in Charleston or 9/11, these people called it on themselves. And this is when we get down to like the nitty gritty and we want to start to say, well, this person attracted this to them. We only want to be responsible for the good stuff that we attracted to ourselves, right? And we want the bad stuff to be random, right? We never. And so the question that I ask is that, okay, so at what point are your thoughts not magnetic? Like at what point do you stop being a magnetic being? At what point does it turn off? Does it and at what moment does it turn off? Does it turn off the moment something out of whack that we consider out of whack is about to happen? Or are you perpetually a magnetic being? When does it turn off? That's a question to ask. And I don't necessarily understand all the things that happen to me, but I trust the law. The law of aerodynamics says that I can fly through the air. And it's only when I stop participating in the law of aerodynamics, either through a mechanical error or something else, that I'm no longer able to fly through the air. And the same thing with the law of gravity, or with any that when I stop participating with it and being in alignment with it, that is when I'm not able to do the things that working with the law allows me to do. So, anyway, that's a whole other thing. Lamar Alexander says, find the good and then to praise it. Absolutely. Absolutely. There, any situation, no matter how dark it is, something good comes out of it. Any situation, as dark as this situation is right now with, the pattern of police brutality, this is not new. We just have a different society set up where, we have smartphones and we have the ability to tape it. But I remember stories growing up of, people being pulled over by the cops and roughed, beat up, killed. So this is not a new pattern of violence that is happening. It's just being looked at and exposed in a different way. It's in our face. It's kind of like, when in the civil rights era, when they, I think it's Governor Wallace, but Bull Connor, one of them, when they turned the hoses on the children, that all of a sudden it was this violence in your face, like you could no longer not see it anymore, right? And it's the same thing with these smartphones. That this isn't new. You just can no longer not see it. Like it's everywhere. Constance says, plus what we focus on expands with these police. Yes, what we focus on expands. Absolutely. And so we must begin to look at what is good. There's something good there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this. If nothing else, it may change the culture of how we handle, or how police handle themselves in this country, and that's a good thing. We incarcerate a very large percentage of our population compared to other developed countries, meaning countries that we're on par with. So that system needs to change. We also have a prison system that doesn't rehabilitate people. People go to prison and come out better prisoners. And that's a consciousness. We spend more on prisoners than we do on education. And we know that investing in education is one of the best ways to keep someone out of prison. We know that there's the research is conclusive that the better educated someone is, not that they won't do wrong, because clearly you got Blagojevich, or you got folks that are just corrupt. But I'm talking about petty crime type stuff. That the more educated someone is, that the less likely they are to end up in prison. So we've got some balancing things that we've got to do. But then also how we handle prison, and how we handle jail sentences, and how we handle the men and women that are behind bars while they're behind bars. And are we compassionate? Are we creating an atmosphere where they can really change and develop? Or is it just simply a breeding ground so that they come out and can be a better criminal? Ray says, there is a school of thought which suggests that we agree to the manner in which we leave this form of expression in law of attraction. Marvin says, this is getting very deep very fast. Ray says, our prison system tends to leave people to rot in jail, out of sight, out of mind. I agree. I agree. And so you've got an entire, the thing is that everyone is the Christ in expression. Everyone is the Christ in expression in varying degrees. And I believe that we have a responsibility, meaning as a pastor, I feel a responsibility to help the people for sure that are in my charge, in my church, under my charge in my church, in terms of helping them to be the spiritual beings that they were meant and designed to be. That's important. Oh, who's trying to come? Oh, hey, Gina. Come on in. Okay, so, I already did it. So you should see something that says join. It should be able to bring you in. Oh, she says, what did you say again about how we create our experience? I was trying to write it down. The law is how we experience God. Yeah, I will go back to that as soon as she gets into the conversation. Letting people go, meaning not being our most loving selves and seeing the Christ in everyone. And it's not just seeing it, because like once you see it, it has to become something that you do something about. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, once you see the good in someone, then there's some action that you've got, and then you're compelled to act on it, or I think obligated to act on it. That yes, we are our brother's keeper, in the sense of creating a world that allows people to be their best selves. I think that we have a responsibility to do that. And so when we create systems where we incarcerate large numbers of people, whatever race they are, but just large numbers of people, I think it's wrong. I don't know if it's any differently. That sounds like a judgment, but it is wrong. It's wrong. It's not okay. It's not. I don't believe that that's the way that we are meant to do life. That's not. It is. And I think it's why prison ministries are so important. I think it's why ministries in depressed areas are so important, because just to wake someone up to the greatness within them is worth all the tea in China. I don't know how much tea in China is, but it's worth all the tea in China. And however much that is worth that. Okay. So using the law thoughtfully. So praise, we tend to think of praise the way that my little drawing here looks like, with this guy, hands open, and he's excited. But praise really is anything that you give your attention to. So it's not just what you do in church on Sunday, right? Praise is whatever you give your attention to, you are praising. So when you think about where if you take the religious connotation off of praise, and you understand praise as focused, fervent attention. Some of us give focused, fervent attention to all the stuff that's going wrong in our world. Praise, if you, again, taking the religious connotation off of praise. Praise is focused, fervent attention. There's an energy to it. There's an excitement level, not necessarily in a happy place. It could be excitement. If you've ever seen somebody talk about how bad their job is, right? And there's all of this like energy around it, and it is, and there's an intensity to it, right? And so it is that intense attention. That's what praise is. And oftentimes when we use the word praise, we think of it in religious connotations. We only think of it in terms of playing gospel or Christian music, or we only think of it in terms of, hands raised, I raise my hands in the sanctuary, and we think of it in those terms. But pulling the religious connotation off of it, praise is intense and fervent and focused attention. And then the question is, what gets the lion's share of your intense, focused, and fervent attention? Is it all the problems with your spouse, all the things that he doesn't do right? Is it all the problems that you're having meeting your financial obligations? What gets that, and that energy that I'm talking about, what gets that energy where it's like, is it all the mistakes that your daughter or son is making in life? What gets that? Because that's where your praise is, right? And so what you want to do when you're using the law of increase is to be thoughtful about it. So we've got to break the concept of praise as just this religious thing, as this thing that you do on Sunday, and really begin to look at it as this focused, fervent attention. Gina, I don't know if you were able to get in or not. I don't see you in the thing. Oh no. Let me go back. Was she able to get in? Gina, if you want to try to get in again, when I try to bring you in as a speaker, it asks you to join, but you need to have a Gmail account to come in. I know you have one because you've come in before. So I'll invite you again, and you can try one more time. Okay, Ray says, our prison system tends to leave people to rot in jail, out of sight, out of mind. Prison ministry is a very special calling, as it takes someone who is extremely steeped in truth, as the demands can appear overwhelming. Absolutely. At 100%, the demands appear overwhelming, because you go in and there are these fixed mindsets, and you really need the anointing to walk in those doors and to be able to speak Christ to Christ to the person that you see. And the thing is that people can be so turned off to they don't even believe that help is available. And anyone that would come trying to help them, they'd be busy trying to game them. And so to be able to stand firm in your spiritual poise, and it says deep calls to deep, that you have to go to a deep place inside yourself, one, so you don't get caught up in somebody's game, and then two, so that you can speak not to the surface, not to the person who committed the crime, not to the person who killed the person or stole the money or raped the woman or whatever the crime was, right? But so that you can speak to Christ to Christ. That's what this work is. That's what this work is. And that's no small feat. Praise is causative. Praise is causative, meaning it sets the law in motion. So we think of praise as what you give when the blessing happens, right? I got a new car, so I'm praising God for my new car. And yes, praise God for your new car. So don't think I'm saying don't praise God for your stuff. I don't want nobody leaving me no crazy comments like that, right? What I'm saying is that praise is what you do before the blessing appears, because it's what sets the law in motion. So you're never waiting for the blessing. He writes it this way. Uh-oh. Okay, I can't find my notes. Oh, okay. This is on page 103. He says that we copy from the Israelites a practice that falls annually. Each year we have a Thanksgiving service, and many think it is for us to express our gratitude for the year past. If you think for a moment, you can readily see that this is a reversal of the law of praise. Such a service should not be a review, it should be a preview. That is, a true Thanksgiving service should be an expression of our faith, not in the past, but in the present and in the future to come. Many of us have gotten into a rut. We want our pay in advance. We offer praise after our barns are well filled. If all is going well, we are willing to pause to give thanks for our good fortune. Anyone can be grateful with the gift already in hand. You know, if you got the diamond on your finger, it's easy to be grateful, right? If conditions are bad, our harvest lean, or trouble besets us, we are apt to forget to praise, and we storm at our failures and often blame God for his neglect. When one can sing praises in the face of adversity, the adversity will soon disappear. That is not a promise, that is the law. That is not a promise, that is the law. That's just how it works. Praise sets things in motion. It's not what you do on the back end, it's what you do on the front end. So you want to praise God in advance for what you want and for what you are asking for. That is how praise works. It sets it in motion. I'm guilty of this. Many people fail to repeat their demonstrations because they take too much for granted, or they become careless with the law after they have enjoyed some blessing. Perpetual praise. You want to make it a daily ritual. Praise, it isn't, you don't praise until you get a blessing. You praise as a way of life, right? So you let go thinking of praise as something that you do for a specific blessing, and you make it a way that you handle life. And again, it's the same thing with the giving and the tithing and why tithing works. The reason that tithing works as far as bringing good into your life is that it continually touches the law in a definite, specific, and systematic way. When you praise continually, you are touching the law in a definite, specific, and systematic way where you are continually bringing good into your experience. And so it is perpetual praise. It is praise all the time, right? And and that's why I say it's a spiritual disposition and not just what you say on your out of your mouth. Alita says praise is expectation. I don't know if I would use that definition. I don't really, in fact, I know I wouldn't use that definition. Expectation is, so praise is like a spiritual disposition, but expectation is the preparation for a blessing. So if you have asked for $1 million in income, start preparing for it. Go and find out how it's going to be held. Where are you going to put it? And get specific with it. It's like the widow gathering the vessels. That gathering, that preparation for the oil. She didn't know how much oil was in there. She just had to go and start preparing for the oil with the number of vessels that she gathered. And then it wasn't until she started to pour that she saw that the supply ran until the end of her expectation, represented by her filling that last vessel. Constance says you can praise and be in a state of expectation. Exactly. But let me explain state of expectation, because I don't want you to think that this is just kind of a sitting still. Because a state of expectation has activity, right? So when it says teach us how to wait, right? Teach us how to wait on, teach me how to wait, Lord, is that teach me how to live in expectation. So live in this state of not doing nothing, but I'm going and I'm getting ready because I have I'm drumming up the feeling and the belief that what I've asked for is going to come to pass. I hope that clarifies it, Alita. If it doesn't, ask me another clarifying question. But expectation is demonstrated by preparation. That's the main. Expectation is demonstrated by preparation. Are you expecting help? Get ready for it. And if you don't know how to prepare, ask God how to prepare. If what you are asking for is, Reverend Della tells a story of asking God for a husband. And so she had some very definite things. She got rid of the bed that she had, and she bought 2 twin beds. And so the one twin bed represented the bed that he would sleep in. And she always says that I do a lot of entertaining in my bedroom, but it's not the way that you think that you would mean it. And but she would have people over and they would hang out in her bedroom, but no one could sit on that bed because that was his bed. And people were like, ain't no man in sight, but that's his bed. This is where he's going to sleep. This is where he's going to rest. And so so no one can touch it. This is part of how she prepared, right? And so if you need to know how to prepare for your blessing, then you need to speak to the presence and the power of God inside of you and ask, how do I prepare for what I'm asking for? I'm asking for an international ministry that goes all over the world with Up Church. Father, teach us how to prepare for that. What do we need to do right now? How do we get ready for that? So this is the conversation that you are having with the power and the presence that indwells you. Okay, so this process comes out of a personal experience that I had. So I wrote about it in the blog post, and I'm getting to the end of my hour. Oh, goodness, Sherri. All right, so how to work the law of increase. The first thing you want to do is to affirm what you want. You want to get specific about your desire. And one of the Bible verses that supports that is Job 22:28. You will decide on a matter, and it will be established for you, and light will shine on your ways. So I have been an entrepreneur since forever, a fairly long time. But a couple things happened. One, in 2008, it was the height of the Great Recession. The entertainment business that I've been working to get off the ground really just kind of fizzled. The writers went on strike in Hollywood, and then the real estate market tanked, because that was my kind of backup, was that I would have these rental properties that paid for me to live while I worked on my entertainment business. Well, they both went in the toilet. And it was like literally every deal that was available to me that was potentially going through fell apart. And my income plummeted, and so did my self-esteem. And it finally got to a place in 2010 where the rental monies that were coming in were barely keeping me afloat. In fact, they weren't. I was falling behind in everything. And I was desperate. And I think at that time we were in Reverend Della's class on Wednesday night, and we were studying the dynamic laws of prosperity from Catherine Ponder. And I got this affirmation from her that said, I adapted it, but the way I adapted it, it became, Christ in me now draws to me the perfect work with the perfect income, and I'm able to pay all my bills in full and on time. And I would get up in the morning, and at the time I was living in my friend's home in Mid-City, Los Angeles, and I would walk down Washington to Fairfax, and then around to Venice, and then back Crenshaw, and then back. So that was my route. It took me about an hour to power walk that, and I would just repeat this mantra over and over and over again. The Christ in me now draws to me perfect work with the perfect income, and I'm able to pay all my bills on time and in full. And I would repeat it over and over and over again. And I remember one day saying this, and at this point I was on Venice Boulevard, somewhere around Dunsmuir, and I felt this kind of cry. It wasn't anything loud or anything, but just this cry inside of me that and it was like this welling up, like I wanted to cry. I didn't, but it was that kind of feeling inside of me. And then a short while later, I was talking to a friend, because I was applying for a job, different jobs, and nothing was coming through. And I was talking to a friend who said her job was hiring. And I said, okay, fine, I'll take the job. I'll call and I'll interview. Well, I interviewed and I got the job. And the step was to affirm what you want, to get specific in what you are asking for, whatever it is that you are affirming, and get definite and intentional about affirming that. Get clear on what you want and then affirm it. And what I was asking for was a job. And so that job came about. Then the second step is to praise whatever appears. You want to start where you are with what you have. And so one of the things that I did with this job, so this was a wonderful experience. I had this lavish lifestyle, and it was being like squeezed down. And the job was a minimum wage job. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what? But the only thing that I was armed with was the principle that you praise whatever shows up. And it was the height of the recession. It was 2010. And, the economy was semi-recovering, whatever. My economy was not recovering. And I took the job because there was no other leads that were there. But I had a principle. I should have brought this downstairs. I have a picture of it on my website. And so I took this job, and it was a sales job, being a telefundraiser for nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity, PETA, the Humane Society, you name it. There was tons of name brand groups. And so I'm in this job, and I'm struggling because it's a sales job, and I'm struggling, and I am having difficulty closing donors and getting them to donate. And I get called in for a performance warning. And it's like, oh my God, the only job I can get, and I'm about to get fired from it. I'm not laughing at the time, I'm laughing now. But that's like how I felt. Like, this is just ludicrous, right? And so I get put on probation. And so I said, okay, well, I need something to take my mind to a higher place while I am on the phone, because one no and my energy can plummet. Well, then that jams me up for the rest of the shift, because I'm not calling with enthusiasm. I'm not happy. I don't have the expectation that somebody might give to me, or give their credit card to me over the phone, and So what I resolved to do was to write out affirmations. And I had already been prayer journaling. I've talked about this before. I've been prayer journaling since 2002, so a good 6 years, 8 years. So just the process of writing out positive stuff on paper, I knew that would be a way for me to go somewhere in my mind and be positive. And so I would just write out affirmations of praise. I would just write them out. And I would do this, and then sometimes they evolved into prayers, right? And I would switch it up depending on what I felt like during the day. Some days I would just write, I am the #1 fundraiser at this company. Sometimes I would write, donors love to give their credit card to me when I call. Other times I would write, prayers for my coworkers, or prayers for the donors that I would talk to, or this is funny. I know that he has children now, but at the time, I would pray for the children of the CEO. I didn't even know if he had children. I just kind of made it up. It was like, whatever. I'm gonna light everybody up in this place. I'm praying for everybody. And this went on for probably about 6 months. So I started the job October 25th, and I started journaling probably right out of getting out of training and getting on probation. And I would just do this every day, and I go to work, and then I would get out of on my breaks. I would go sit in my car, and there was an affirmation from Seed Money in Action that I would go and listen to, and I had recorded it on my smartphone, and I would listen to it over and over. It's a powerful. I have it on. I think I put it in today's blog post. If not, it's definitely on my site, and I'll highlight it. And I would just listen to it over and over again, and then I'd get out of my car and go back into work after the break. I didn't talk to anybody. People thought I was unfriendly because I was on a mission. And my whole thing was like, get back to running my business. Like, I just needed to get some income coming in, and then get back to running my business. And so about 6 months into doing this, every time I go into work, and I would work 3 to 4 days a week, and I would and the shift was anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 6 hours, depends on how long I worked. Anyway, 6 months into this, it was like the energy just broke. And I heard about a position that was it was still on the calling floor, but a higher paying division, and I applied for it, and I got it. And then it was just like one after another, where I just got a series of promotions. And within 12 months, I had been promoted into a corporate position with a real salary, $55,000 a year. That included bonuses for corporate profit sharing. I had a team of, at the time, 22 callers that I was managing, and under my leadership, it grew to a team of more than 30 callers. I had, I think, 4 or 5 clients to start, and then by the time I got ready to leave the job, we had grown it to 7 clients. And it was just this incredible trajectory. And it really taught me the value and the power of praise. And at the time, like I said, all I was trying to do was just survive and get back to running my business. I had no intention of moving up. I didn't even know this corporate position existed. But what this experience taught me is that praise, there's a level of praise that you can get to that will literally shatter the atmosphere of where you are. That it will, if you imagine that we all walk and exist in our own comfort zone, right? The way out of that comfort zone is praise. And what praise will do is that it will take what you have and it'll do one of two things. It'll transform it into whatever you want, or it'll move you to where you want to be. And so for me, it transformed a minimum wage job into a corporate position that I didn't even know was possible. I was just trying to survive, and I had no idea that it was even available. I taught this to one of my church members who, at the time, was looking for a job, and she lives in Long Beach, and the position for this job is in Hollywood proper, right down on Sunset Boulevard. And so she applied, she got the job, and same thing, she was struggling with the whole sales thing. And so I said, look, this is what I did. And I showed her, because I have some of the legal pads still around, and I showed her the things that I wrote. And at the time, I was in the corporate position when I had, exposed her or introduced her to the company. And so she started doing the same thing. In her situation, what ended up happening is that one day she came into work and she randomly sat in a seat. And one of the things you find out in a fundraising center is that people are very funny about their seats. And she happened to sit in somebody else's seat. And in sitting in this other person's seat, she the person came in and said, no, that's my seat. And so she said to them, she said, okay, no problem, whatever, no drama. You can have your seat, it's not that deep. And so she gets out of the seat. Well, they end up striking up a conversation. It ends up being a friendly encounter. And it turns out that the person knows about a job. And so she tells my friend about the job. My friend applies, and the position ends up being a position that pays more money and is closer to her home in Long Beach. So praise is transformative. It transforms where you are into one or two things, either where you want to be, or it even transforms what you have into what you want. Not like you put on blinders and all of a sudden you want something that you don't want, but it literally reshapes the environment that you're in. And I didn't, I experienced that personally. And so he writes in the chapter, be ever grateful, for the very least of things and the very most will come to you. That's on page 105. Be ever grateful, for the very least of things and the very most will come to you. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is to concentrate on good only. One of the things that I did, and it absolutely was the right decision, is that I withdrew my attention from the parts that were unpleasant and I praised what was good. So I would get these little paltry checks that were just, I used to joke that, at a certain dollar amount, they shouldn't take taxes out. Like, it's just, like for real. At a certain dollar amount, they should just stop, because it's ridiculous to take taxes out of a check that small. But I withdrew my attention from these little meager checks, and I put it on what was good. And so I started to notice only what was good, and that's what I praised. I praised, my coworkers. I praised the people that were there. I praised my performance. I praised the donors that I spoke to, and I took my attention off of the good. So step 1 is affirm what you want. Step 2 is to praise whatever appears. Right? If this job that paid minimum wage is what was the fruit of my affirmations, then I'm going to praise it. I'm not going to turn my nose up. I'm going to praise it. And then I'm going to concentrate only on the good. I'm going to take my attention off of what isn't pleasant about this experience, and I'm going to put it only on what is good. Your constant attention to what you do not want keeps it alive in your experience. And I saw this with other callers, where they would focus on things that they were upset about in terms of, how things were happening on the job. And it was like, what, I'm not even getting into that conversation. I am going to keep my attention on what is good. And then step 4 is to trust the praise process. Trust the praise process. You have to surrender to this process. No one can tell you how long it will take for your environment to transform because of your praise. And so what you must do is detach from the outcome. Your success is assured because a faithful law, faithfully observed, will ever reward generously the observer. A faithful law, faithfully observed, will ever reward generously the observer. So what you have to do in this process is detach. Now, when I started doing this and discerning this process, all I was looking to do was just to take my mind somewhere else while I'm on these phone calls. That's really all I was looking to do. I was trying to keep myself positive so that I wouldn't sink emotionally after somebody told me no. And I did get to a place where I could hear no 10, 20, 25 times. And it's like, you know what, I'm good. Like my energy would not just sink into the toilet. And I got very good at that by simply just journaling in between phone calls and keeping my energy up. But you got to trust the process. I had no idea that within 6 months I would begin this trajectory that within the next 12 months would essentially land me in a corporate position. I had no way of seeing that. And I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't even know that position could be open to me. It wasn't even like a thought in my mind. And again, it wasn't what I was looking for. But I don't think that matters. I think that you can want something and detach from the outcome, and you can begin to praise where you are. And however you do it, I like writing. Writing works for me. But for you, it might be a music thing, just listening to affirmative music or music that keeps you in a praise state of mind. It might be you having a positive conversation with someone in your life who is, always on a positive vibe, to keep your energy up. I don't know how you're going to work out your praise thing. But it is your job to figure out how you will keep yourself in a state of perpetual praise. And then finally, repeat the process. That's affirm, praise, concentrate or focus on the good only, trust that it's going to work out, repeat. One of the first requisites of the law is that we keep ever an attitude of praise and thanksgiving. Continual praise keeps us receptive to God's blessings. Continual praise keeps us receptive to God's blessings. I got a question, a text message from Gina that says, what did you say about what you think about your experience in tonight's Bible study? What did you say about what you think about your experience? Gina, you gotta ask me that one more time, because I'm not sure exactly where you're referencing. Like I've moved past that point, but ask me again, and I can definitely go back to that. So here are the steps again. Affirm what you want. Name your good in detail and claim it in the present tense. Number 2, praise whatever appears, because whatever appears is from your consciousness, so praise it as if it is what you want and need. Number 3, concentrate on good only. Give your attention only to what is good. Number 4, trust the praise process. Every vision has its appointed hour, and it may take 2 minutes, 2 days, or 2 years. Just stick with it. And number 5, repeat the process. Make your praise a non-negotiable element of your day. Create rituals that include praise to help you remember to praise, right? So you may decide, you know what, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes each day, and I'm going to make it a praise walk. And so this is, and I'm going to do it every day, and this is the activity that I'm going to do, but I make it a non-negotiable. This is what I do every day. So here's my call to action to you, is to identify an area of your business that you want to increase, and you want to develop a praise practice for that area and do it daily. Identify an area of your business that you want to increase, develop a praise practice for that area, and do it daily. And then 3, leave me a comment on YouTube with the results. I absolutely know you're going to have the best results. I already know that, because I know how praise works. But do it every day and detach from the outcome. So if it's say customers that you want, or if it is to double your profits, or whatever it is that you're looking to do, develop a praise practice around it, and then do it every day. Every day. Build a ritual around it and detach from the outcome, and then leave me a comment. Let me know what the results are. Are there any questions? I kind of raced through that last part because we're at 10 minutes after 9. Thank you guys for hanging in there. I won't. Today just got a little bit off track. Constance says, will this be on your blog? Yes. This is what I wrote about in the blog, this process, this 5-step process. It's on today's blog post. How praise turned $8 an hour into $55,000 annually in 18 months. That's the name of today's post. Any other questions? Any aha moments? Anything? Any takeaways that you know that you can use immediately? Constance says, excellent testimony. I'm excited. Me too. Me too. You know, when I go back and I am revisiting this information, it reminds me of stuff, and there's some things that I've incorporated, and they're part of like my everyday thing. And then there are other things that I like haven't done in a while, like that praise process. I hadn't done that in a while, and it was like, wait a minute, I know that works. I know that I changed a minimum wage job. I know that works. Judy says, I'm working with this principle since the beginning of this year, and I have come so far in the last 6 months. I'm telling you, it is the things that we are able to do are just incredible. I got a text message. Oh, okay. All right, so Gina's trying to get deep. All right, Gina, it's gonna be an offline conversation. She said, "What did you say? If the police stops you and they shoot you, you create your experience." Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is no point in your experience that I'm aware of that you stop being a magnet. I don't know a point in your experience where you stop being a magnet. And if you do, let me know, because we always want to talk about being a magnet for when everything is going well, but we do not want to address being a magnet when things are not happening the way that we want to. And this is not to say that we draw, like we always want to draw like a linear line, like I thought this thought and then it created this specific experience. I don't believe that it works like that. I believe that we entertain a thought and it opens us up to a range of experiences. So not that it draws that specific one, but there is a way of thinking that opens you up to a range of experiences. And so it could happen for you or it could not happen for you, but because of the way that we think, this range of experiences is available for us to go through. Marvin says, but Mama sets the magnet with her praise or the lack thereof. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Constance says that can go to the very thing I fear comes. Yes, the thing I fear comes upon me. Or we brag about what we would do and draw things to us, and we are magnets. Period. Absolutely, absolutely. You can bring him here, Mike. We open ourselves to, so I want to move off this idea that like I thought one thought and then I drew an experience where someone harmed me, right? It is that that in my mind these kinds of things are possible, and so I'm open for those experiences to happen to me. And I could go into this a lot more, and I want some diagrams, and maybe it might be a good thing for me to do kind of a webinar on how we create our own experience, because this is an area that people run into a lot of problems, and they only want to agree with the good stuff that happens to them, and the bad stuff they want to say, well, they want to give us some other explanation. And the thing is that God is unchanging, right? So if God is unchanging, then so is the law of attraction, then so is the law of gravity, then so is the law of aerodynamics, so is otherwise God is changing. All right, you see Jordan in the background. That otherwise God is changing. And if God is changing, then God is not a fundamental principle of the universe. And you can't really have it either or. It doesn't get to be, in this instance God is changing, and in this instance God is unchanging. It just doesn't work like that. Constance says that can go to the very thing I fear. Hold on. We are magnets, period. Louise Hay states that we are always affirming everything, negative or positive. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that sometimes when we say, okay, well, this person that we attract to us, that somehow we're saying that someone is deserving of something bad happening to them. And we got to stop coupling these things in our minds. To say that you attracted something to you is not saying that you are deserving of something bad happening to you. Those things are not synonymous. They don't go together like, wine and cheese. It doesn't work like that. But we are absolutely magnets, and we do magnetize ourselves for a certain range of experiences by what we eat, what we consume. I thought about that when I watched, and I know this is going to raise some hairs on some people's backs, but I thought about that when I thought people talked about the activist situation with Sandra Bland. But we all know the story of doctors who have studied diseases, and later in their life they contract the very disease that they've been studying. That you open yourself up. I'm not telling you don't be a doctor, but I'm telling you be mindful that what you study, you create room for in your experience. This is why I don't know if this is a scripture, but it certainly is a song. It says that study war no more. You don't study it because you don't want it as a possibility in your experience. What you study, you open yourself up for. And if you study all the bad things that are happening to people, you open yourself for that to happen in you. And the only way for something to happen to you is for it to first happen in you. Constance says we must come out of the serve you right attitude and allow love to come through. Absolutely. Absolutely. The people who died in 9/11, they didn't deserve to die. The people in Charleston didn't deserve to die. That's not how that works. That we're all deserving of absolute good only. But we absolutely magnetize ourselves for whatever experiences come into our world. Anyway, that's a whole webinar all by itself. How do we create our own experience? Thank you so much for tonight. We went way over. Look, I got Gina sending a message. She says, so what do you do instead? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a webinar on how do we create our own experiences just for metaphysical Bible folk. And we're going to really dig into this because I think this is a very important, and it'll be more conversation style, as opposed to kind of just me talking, and then that way we can go back and forth. And I will do that. I'll do that right after I come back from POT. We'll do it on we'll do it at an earlier time. Marvin says oftentimes we need to recondition our subconscious minds. Yes. So. I'll send it out via my newsletter, and we'll do it. I probably can. No. I got stuff for guardianship when I come back. I probably can do it at the end of the week, maybe the Friday after the Bible Hangout when I get back. Okay. Anyway, I'll plan it. I'll put the notice out, and we'll really kind of dig into this. How do we create our own experience? I thank you guys for tonight. I can't believe how long this went. God bless all of us. I release you in the love and the light of the Christ, and I affirm that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and so it is. Thank you so much. Those of you that will be in Jamaica with me next week, I will see you in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Yay! And we will be doing the Bible Hangout. Hopefully I'll be able to do it live. That would be meaning when I say live, meaning have a live audience. So we'll see what happens. All right, y'all. Have a great night. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.